Good morrow, ladies and gents. This is Andrew here with Creative Crush, and we today are talking about the top 10 questions we hope to get answers from Alien Covenant, Ridley Scott's new upcoming film. I've got some notes here so I don't get lost because it's a doozy. We may be running into some potentially spoilery items for Alien, and if you haven't seen Prometheus, certainly for that. So treat yourself, even if your reviews might keep you away, it's worth your time, especially with the upcoming Alien Covenant. You're gonna learn some cool things with this one. One thing that we can agree on, even with all the spin-offs, prequels, and sequels that have come from this franchise, including novels and comic books, is that the core of the whole thing has always been the mystery. Yes, the big chap, the alien, has been something that people have been really interested in, and in some ways that has dwarfed the mystery of the franchise. But what Ridley Scott started off with was the mystery. Who was the space jockey? How did it get there? Who sent them on the order to get the specimen and bring it back? Priority one. The questions that I'm wanting to go over here today are ones that have been brewing in my mind pretty much ever since I first saw Alien whenever I was like 6 years old. Don't judge me. Oh man, that chestburster scene. Whew. Yep, some things shape you in ways you didn't expect. Big questions that I've had through the whole thing is, who was the space jockey? Why was it there? How did it get there? Questions like that. Now, Prometheus tried to answer some of those questions, and we got some pieces of it. The real genius of Prometheus is that it didn't give us all the answers, which is what makes me so excited for Covenant. Covenant is going to give us more answers and more questions. Here are the top 10 questions that I have from Prometheus and the rest of the Alien franchise that I really hope to see answered in Alien Covenant. So let's dive in. Question number 1. Peter Weyland, the guy who owns Weyland Corp. In Prometheus, Peter Weyland sends out a crew on his ship, the Prometheus, to find and reconnect with these ancient alien engineers who he believes created the humans. But why was the crew so incompetent? They weren't paying attention most of the time, with the exception of Charlize Theron and Idris Elba, two very sexy people. Most of the crew, except for Shaw as well, are constantly getting into their own little hijinks and behaving pretty irrationally. So that brings up some questions. Why did he send that crew to begin with? Shouldn't he have prepared a little bit better if he really wanted this to succeed? I think Peter Weyland had never planned on them succeeding to begin with. And I think we'll get some answers to that in the upcoming film. Because Weyland Corp no longer exists in Alien Covenant, we see that the company has become Weyland-Yutani Corporation. That means Weyland's assets were sold, probably because he made such terrible business practices in the previous film, spending everything he had just to get up there. Still, the question remains, why did he do it? I believe, and we may get answers to this, the reason he did it is because he didn't care about the crew. His whole goal was just to get up there, and he needed Shaw to get him there. So the only reason he got the rest of the crew together was to fake her out, to make her think that they were actually going on this mission, when in reality, he just wanted to meet the people he thought were his gods. Question number 2. What happened to the engineers? Now, this is something that I do think we're going to get very clear answers on in the coming film, because we can see pieces of it in the trailers. We see what David was doing. It looks like even David was attacking, if not killing, the engineers. Before I saw that scene, I was under the impression that perhaps some kind of a war had broken out amongst the engineers. They destroyed themselves in some fashion. Perhaps the black goo that they had made went awry and hurt them. Maybe they were trying to attack Earth, and there was a separation between them, those who wanted to protect us and those who wanted to destroy us. We don't know. It appears that David is dumping out the black ooze onto this engineer city. But why? And was the city even still alive at the time when they arrived? We'll get more answers to this later. From what we can piece together, it looks like they were still a thriving community. So then therefore, where were they? From what we can see in the movie Prometheus, it appears that there are multiple factions of the engineers. In the very beginning of the film, we see an engineer wearing what appears to be ceremonial robes. The ship that we can see taking off in the beginning of the film doesn't appear to be the normal crescent-shaped ship that we're more familiar with. It appears to be something else. So was there a difference of culture there? Were these two different people altogether? Was one opposed to the creation and seeding of DNA on planets with the use of the black goo? Number 3. How did the ship get on LV-426 in the film Alien? Now this is a question that's been around for a while, and we still don't have anywhere to go with it. We know that the ship appears to have crash landed there. The residents of the ship deceased. There was a signal coming out. Swallowed a fly. We can see the ship crash landed, but how did it get there, and why? Whenever the Nostromo crew lands on LV-426 and goes out to investigate it, and then Kane has an unfortunate respiratory accident, Ripley is relating to Ash, the science officer, that she thinks that the signal coming from the alien ship was a warning, which suggests that they didn't want people coming to the ship. They were trying to keep people away. That kind of throws some holes in the theory that the alien beings, the engineers, were trying to destroy humanity. Because why would they put out a warning? It's possible that they're trying to keep people away from the ship to protect their own. I had believed that they were gone long before that, at least from the things I had picked up from Prometheus. New evidence from the new trailers suggest they may still be around even right now in current alien lore. They may have even been around during Ripley's time. We don't know yet. More questions, more answers. Question number 4. What happened to David and Shaw in between the events of Prometheus and Alien Covenant? So we get some answers to that from the pre-release footage that we saw on Alien Day a couple of weeks ago. It still leaves us wondering though, what exactly happened to them when they arrived? Where is Shaw? In all of the newer trailers we've seen, she's not around. So did David ever wake her up? Or is she still asleep in that pod he put her in? If you haven't seen that footage, go watch it. And what has David been up to this entire time? We can see little pieces of what appears that he's built a hovel of some sort and is studying the local wildlife. But if he created that wildlife with the black goo, I mean, what was the whole purpose of it? We'll answer that some more on that question in a minute. That goes into one of my bigger questions that I'm going to tie into at the end. Question number 5. Can the alien's eggs only come from a queen? Now this is something that's pretty interesting and you may not be familiar with this theory. Hopefully you are though, because it's a cool one. So if you've seen Alien, the director's cut, you will be familiar with a scene where Ripley comes into a nest where the alien's been living and Brett is cocooned and he appears to be changing into something else, like his material's being digested and converted. But into what? This theory is called egg morphing, that the alien can actually take material and convert it into its own material, an egg, and then capture other hosts to propagate itself. This is something that has been discussed in other places better than I can do it right here. So if you want to learn more about that, you can look for it and find it. But it does raise the question, is egg morphing going to appear in this film? The eggs we can see in the trailers do appear to be a little bit different than the ones we're familiar with. They look different than the ones in Alien and in Aliens, and even in Alien 3, with a shorter head on those ones, but these ones coming to a bigger point and having defined lips on the edges of the egg. Is it possible that these eggs came from a new format of reproduction? We also know a little bit about the creature itself. It's not being called a xenomorph directly. A different species of the same genus, maybe? Don't know. Maybe that's why the eggs look different. Either way, it would be cool to see if this is a good way to shoehorn in the idea of egg morphing, because I think that feels a lot more alien than just the idea of, you know, an alien bug queen that lays eggs. And it feels more like an ant or something more familiar to us on Earth. It's still cool, don't get me wrong. I love Aliens. Excellent film. Just makes me wonder though, is there another way to tell this story that really preys on our fears of the unknown? Are you getting alien educated? Question 6, and this one's a pretty cool one that I've wondered about a lot over the years. Weyland-Yutani Corp, the company as it's called in the films, why didn't they ever go back to LV-426 after the Nostromo never came home? If the ship was sent there specifically to bring back lifeform Priority 1, why did they never go get one again? What happened? It leads me to this idea. The company never really knew about the creatures. They never really knew about the ship, but somebody did. We'll get into that near the end. Hopefully we'll get some more answers on this throughout the film, and I believe that we will, especially through David. I think he's going to play a very huge part in the overarching lore of Alien. Question 7. What is the black goo from Prometheus? I mean, we see it. We see them using it. In the beginning of the film, the engineer takes a big swig and turns to dust, and then we see his DNA go in the water and recombobulate back. So it appears the black goo is used to create life, but later on we see the black goo and it's killing people, tainting life. Why is this happening? What causes the goo to do that? Was that its original purpose? I believe that the goo had some sort of religious significance to at least a part of the engineer society, that they used it to propagate their own genes throughout the universe. One thing I noticed in Prometheus is that there are no female engineers depicted anywhere. Even in the artworks they find. Why is that? Maybe something happened with the engineers where they accidentally destroyed their ability to reproduce on their own. So in order to perpetuate their society, or life in general, so that they weren't lost, they created this substance to spread life across the galaxy. Maybe something went wrong with that. Maybe that's what happened to cause that giant pile of dead bodies that Fifiel found in Prometheus. Hopefully we'll get some answers to that in the next film, at least a little bit. Number 8. Do you remember that scene in Prometheus where they're all running down the hall chasing after the holograms, and the holograms seem really scared, and then the one falls down and gets his head cut off by the door? You remember that scene? What the heck was going on there? Why were they running? What were they running from? That's a really big question. And that kind of links to the last one with the black goo. I think that there's going to be a connection there. They were obviously afraid of something, and Fifield found these pile of corpses in the hall. How did they get there? They all appeared to have their chests burst as well. Very much like the one that we saw in Alien, who was in the jockey seat. Something to wonder about there. I think we'll get a lot more answers on that in the coming film, at least in part. If we don't get answers, hopefully we will in the next few films. Don't let us down, Scott. Question number 9. Is the Starship Covenant being sent to this planet just on accident, or is it with another more sinister purpose? So we don't know exactly why the Nostromo went to LV-426. Maybe they just happened to stumble upon the signal, maybe the company sent them there, maybe David sent them there. But how did the Covenant find this perfect planet all the way out in the middle of nowhere, ready for human life, that also happens to be a hotbed of alien mess? It seems to me that this may be another company ploy. But that brings us into the last question, question number 10. And this is something that I've really wondered about throughout my entire time with the Alien franchise. Who are the real villains in this story? I don't think it's the alien. The alien is just a force of nature. Like in Life of Pi, the tiger was just a tiger. It was just doing what tigers do. Just like the alien. I think it's the synthetics. Oh, sorry, artificial people. In the film Prometheus, David displays a lot of characteristics that Weyland said he couldn't do. He almost appears to be showing emotion, he's very curious, and he makes decisions that some might consider unethical or distressing. Is it possible that David is disenchanted with his own human creators and wants to get rid of them? Maybe this black goo, and the alien by extension, has provided him this opportunity. David very much had a Pinocchio kind of feel throughout the film, this desire to become a real boy. As we watched in another piece for the promotionals for Prometheus, Weyland does a TED Talk in which he describes that with humanity now being able to create synthetic life, we are the gods now. It's kind of the same thing it looks like David's trying to do. Maybe David, disenchanted with his own gods, the humans that created him, is trying to remove them so that he can be the god now. Maybe that is the overarching plot that we're going to see here. The whole reason everything has come the way it has, the crew of the Covenant being brought to this planet, was all a ploy orchestrated by David, by the artificial people, trying to replace their creators, to become the creators themselves, to take our place. Whether or not any of these questions are answered in the next film, I'm still excited to see it. I hope that you guys are too. If you have any questions that I didn't ask, that you're super interested in finding answers to, post them in the comments below, and we'll talk about some of those later. These questions are what really captivate me about the Alien franchise. I mean, it's cool to watch crazy stuff happen in a sci-fi universe. It's neat to see scary monsters. But the thing that has kept me coming back throughout the years has always been the mysterious questions that I'm left to wonder on and to try and postulate what it means on my own. Whenever I get a little bit closer or feel like I've pieced something together just right, the next trailer or the next bit of information I find pushes that down a little bit. And it gives me an opportunity to start over again, to build up new ideas, and to get closer to what may be the truth. That, to me, is what makes it such a good story. That's what makes it so interesting. It's an important aspect of storytelling, to be able to draw in your viewer with something like a question. And it doesn't have to be a question like these, where it leaves big gaps for you to wonder. It can be anything. The important part is that the viewer is entertained and that they're left wondering. That's why Inception had such good reception. Hey, that rhymes. Even for those who watched it and at the end of it were just like, that was really cool effects, bro, they still had a good time. And it still provided them that opportunity to argue with other people about, did the top fall over or didn't it? With Alien, the questions we're left with are, who were these people? How did it get there? What is the creature? And why did they go find it to begin with? These kind of questions are what draw us into the universe, and that's what makes it so exciting to watch. For the next projects that you guys work on, kind of keep that in mind. What kind of questions can you make your audience ask? I love asking questions, and I'm sure your audiences will too. That's all we have time for today. We'll get creative again next time. See ya. Thanks for watching us today, guys. Again, my name's Andrew. I'm a writer, and I love to help people understand how to write better. Be sure to subscribe if you're interested in learning more about how you can improve your storytelling and what makes a good story. Peace. More questions, more answers. That doesn't make any sense, does it?